friends. My name is Stephanie Romero, and I am the founder and executive director of Awaken Pittsburgh. I want to welcome you to our podcast, The Ripple Effect. Awaken Pittsburgh is a nonprofit dedicated to fostering well-being, empathy, and compassion for all by teaching and encouraging mindfulness and meditation practices. I also want to take a moment to let you know that Awaken Pittsburgh offers many other opportunities for practice and connection. For example, you can join our online community, which features a space to more deeply explore the topics we cover with our guests. We have weekly posts to spark thought, practice, and reflection. I hope you will come join us to explore, connect with others, and deepen your practice. You can find out more at awakenpittsburgh.org. This month, we are covering the topic of appreciation, and we are so lucky to have with us today Dawn Lehman. Dawn Lehman is a trainer, facilitator, and coach who helps people and organizations to live in alignment with their ideals. Dawn is a longtime practitioner of both restorative justice and mindfulness. She brings these foundations to her work not only with Awaken Pittsburgh, but with her business, Collective Change Partners. Dawn holds a BA in social work and an MA in conflict transformation and 2 professional certificates in coaching. I'm so grateful that I have Dawn working alongside me here at Awaken Pittsburgh in the capacity of program coordinator, and I'm really grateful for her for joining me today. Dawn, thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited to have this conversation, and I would love to start off with you just talking to me about the role of mindfulness and meditation in your life.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. It's a pleasure to be talking with you today. Mindfulness has had a really important role in my life for many years now. I would say it has shifted in some ways over time. Sometimes it's more of a spiritual practice. Sometimes it feels more just like a way of living and being. But it's really served as an anchor for me to tap into my own capacity for influencing my circumstances, my well-being, for how I show up in the world. I think growing up, sometimes I just had this sort of false belief that things would get better someday, or that, I don't know, circumstances in life, if I do certain things, I can create certain outcomes. And over time realize, life is much more complex than that. And there will always be things that are difficult and things that I don't like. And I can't keep waiting for that to change, that I can make changes internally. And life gives me plenty of opportunity to work with that. And mindfulness is my go-to to say, what am I going to do now? How am I relating to this?
So maybe you could just describe what your regular practice looks like. I would love to hear about that.
Yeah. So my regular practice right now, and I would say for many years, does involve a daily sit, a daily time in silence where I'm removing other agendas and tuning into my internal experience. And for me, connecting with the breath for that continues to be generally a pretty grounding anchor. And so having that continuity, again, I think that's been somewhat consistent in my practice, relatively speaking, over the years. And I would say that these days I'm really intentionally coupling that with movement practices in particular, just like tapping into my own intuition. What kind of movement is my body needing right now? Coupling that with the sitting practice and also a lot of discernment throughout my day. What does my system need, and how can application of mindfulness support me in this moment?
That's really beautiful to hear about both the seated practice, but then the daily discernment on integration at different moments and the question of what you need. Um, yeah, I love that. And then I always get the question, and I'm sure you get it a lot too, how long am I supposed to sit every day? So I'm really curious what your kind of average sit is, or what your goal is, because I know I have a goal, but don't always make that goal of how long I'm going to sit. So I'm curious how that looks for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sort of default for me for a while has been 20 minutes, but during COVID, that's varied quite a bit because I joined certain groups online. And often when I'm sitting with a group, there's a minimum of a 30-minute sit and then sometimes additional sits. So it tends to be longer with other people. And then honestly, sometimes with my own sitting, it's a little shorter if I'm intentionally coupling it with another practice. Yeah, so I think I do love the practice of setting a time, and for a while I really worked with increasing the time because there's so much juicy stuff that happens in that 5 extra minutes when your mind is conditioned to a certain time and you're playing with that. Um, and yeah, I haven't been as much working with that lately as I have been like really what's the quality of the practice that I'm doing and what is most needed.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that idea that we could approach our sit each day with the question, what's needed, right? That just seems really supportive and what I try to do in my own practice. So that's beautiful. So, this month our topic at Awaken is appreciation. And so I'm curious to hear from you what that word means to you.
Yeah, this has been a fun one to dive into. I really love that we're working with this. It's absolutely something that I work with in my life. When it comes to practices, I think the word gratitude tends to be the one that I link to like my gratitude journal and working with that. And the word appreciation obviously is similar, and I think it has a slightly different connotation for me. And so, as I've been thinking about it in recent weeks, I'm thinking about appreciation as just knowing what you value and noticing when it's present. And sometimes that means recognizing when it's not present and appreciating the potential or the existence of it. Um, and I'm finding that to be an iterative process that sometimes in turning toward appreciation, then I'm getting more clarity about what I value. And so it's sort of building on itself. I love that appreciative or appreciation is also the sort of the economic term for increasing, because there seems to be this appreciative quality as we tune into appreciation or gratitude. Our system inclines toward that, and we notice more things that we can appreciate.
Yeah, I love that about this word too. And I love that you named like your values, right? So there's kind of that economic value that is so prevalent in our culture that this word hints at, but there's also like, what do I put value on? And what kind of jives with me, and that sparks that appreciation, which is very individual,
Yes.
right? Very.
Yes, and I love that invitation to do that discernment. And of course, mindfulness helps with that, right? Because mindfulness is all about what's my actual experience, not the one I think I should be having. Because then it pulls us toward that more collective knowledge of what's important to us.
Yeah, and you bring in the meditative or mindfulness piece with appreciation, and I'm curious that when you're having those experiences that are what you're actually having and not what you wish you were having, what's the role of appreciation, and maybe how does having a practice of gratitude or appreciation kind of work in the moments when you're not actually experiencing what you wish you were would want to experience?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important. It's such an important part of the practice that we cultivate, moving from that judgment of the experience on ourselves to the curiosity. And I really like, I sometimes think of practice as it really does come down to I'm interested in alleviating suffering for myself and others. And so if I want to alleviate suffering, I have to be able to see the suffering. I have to be able to see there's an opportunity here. In fact, the worse something feels, the greater the opportunity for liberation, right? You know, that like sort of flippant way we try to twist it, which sometimes I just smile and say, I can't go there right now. And other times I can say, like, yeah, really, let's just get curious about this. The messiness is the way out of the difficulty. And so cultivating that ability to turn toward without getting caught in blame of myself or someone else is really important.
The word that was coming to mind for me when you were talking was resilience.
Yeah, yeah, I can certainly relate to that. Yeah. Yeah, that there's yeah, building that strength to be with what is. That ability to not deny or hide from, but to look things square in the eye and continue to move forward.
Yeah, and I think when I started my meditation journey, my goal, if you could call it that, was to be able to live through the difficult times with peace, with centeredness, not feeling like I got pushed off my game, not feeling like the world was over when something bad happened. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that being able to be in the present moment and kind of even appreciate the opportunities in our suffering, the opportunities in our difficulties, builds that resilience to move through as opposed to around, or avoidance or stuffing or something like that. I don't know if that is
Yeah, it also builds the capacity for compassion and connection. And we're all in this together. And so there's just some really rich things that can come out of those difficult experiences. And again, for me, like I see so clearly sometimes the conditioning that like this is not okay or I'm waiting for some other time for it to be better. And instead when I can remember like this is it. This is life. Life is full of so many things. And how can I find my bearings, if not my strength, if not my appreciation, if whatever, all of the positive qualities. How can I be open to positive experiences even in the midst of difficulty?
yeah, that's really, it's actually I think feels like my goal too, right? To be in that constant exploration and to really understand that, and this is something we talk about all the time in our programming, that the full range of human experience, even the most difficult, could be welcome and accepted as just part of human experience and what it means to be fully human.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And that's hard, right?
Yes.
Because we really just want the good stuff.
Yeah. It's right. That's right. That's right. And I feel like we're this is making me think of that paradox that always comes up in practice is that we don't want to avoid the bad stuff and we also don't want to get caught in it. which can happen, right? That's another habit of the mind. Now I'm looking at the bad stuff and I'm maybe not even looking at it in a productive way, but now I'm caught in the worry, in the rumination, and the wanting things to be different. So it's, rather than being with it in a healthy way, I get stuck there, which is then where we need to remember, okay, the opportunity for positive experiences is also here. And when do I recognize this is an opportunity to turn to that? And I can also care for the difficult things, but water the positive seeds as well. I have a story about this. I
Go for it.
thought maybe I could share because it's an example of practice. It's happened a long time ago, but I was just thinking about it recently. I practice often in the Plum Village tradition. I know you're familiar with that. And one of the things I love about that tradition is they introduce lots of simple songs for practicing. So I don't know if you've ever had a chance to hear Sister Chung Kong sings a song with like this refrain that when I wake up in the morning, I am happy. When I am aware of my eyes, I am happy. When I'm aware of my health, I'm happy. And it goes on, and it's just like many songs, like simple and in some ways a little silly. In some ways, it can push your buttons because you might say, but I'm not healthy. I don't want to be aware of that. And then the line that I love, it always comes to, I'm happy because I have learned to look deeply. I've learned to understand deeply. So even in the complexity, like I can tap into a sense of happiness, or, I'd call it appreciation. So my story is that I had spent the weekend with my family, and I was getting ready to return home, and I was getting a little bit flustered and stressed just with the packing up and the transition and people and anticipating the end of the weekend and all this. And somehow in the process of packing up, I dropped my car keys in my trunk and didn't know it and couldn't find them. And so it was this moment of stress suddenly becoming quite exacerbated. And eventually I found the keys, and I was pulling out and I was heading home, but I still had the adrenaline from all that. I still had the voices of self-judgment. How could I be so careless? Now I'm running behind, all that stuff. And I was watching my mind do this, that's the fruit of the practice. When you can say, this is happening and it's not ideal. And where is my capacity to work with this? And so I'm driving along, and I remembered the happy song, and I started playing around with it, and I started looking around, aware of those trees. I'm happy, aware of the beautiful sun. I can be happy, aware of my family. I can be happy. And I just kept filling words in, all the reasons to be happy. And eventually, I could feel the shifting in my body. And eventually I came around to, when I lose my keys, I am happy. When I'm behind schedule, I am happy. I could really honestly come back and say, I'm so grateful that this thing happened, because it just connected me in such a deeper way to all of the things I was missing. And so I just, wanted to share that as a shout out to that was a result of the practice, that I could even see that happening. And then I had this tool and this simple song that I could play with. And I could come around to not just there's this sort of fake it till you make it quality there, but I think it's so much deeper than that, really being genuine, to being able to understand deeply that this is the human experience. All of this can happen, and we can work with it, and we can make shifts.
And now, let's take a pause to update you on some upcoming events from Awaken Pittsburgh.
Unlock your creative spirit with Awaken Pittsburgh's Mindfulness Writing Workshop on Sunday, May 5th from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Squirrel Hill JCC Room 310. Join us for an afternoon of discovery and play as we explore the powerful connection between mindfulness, writing, and joy. Whether you're a seasoned writer or just starting your creative journey, this workshop will help you reconnect with your inner child, fostering enthusiasm and freedom of your writing. Guided by Derek Jones, a certified mindfulness meditation teacher, you'll dive into meditation practices and creative writing prompts designed to sharpen your focus, experiment with word choice, and explore your inner landscapes. Don't miss this chance to cultivate your creativity through mindfulness. Space is limited, so reserve your spot today and start your journey to a freer, more creative self. Find your spot at awakenpittsburgh.org/events. See you there.
Now, back to our conversation. Yeah, I love that. I mean, there's a couple of really wonderful things in that story, and the one that really hits me is the ability to be the third person observer watching your mind and recognize, oh, I'm getting caught, right? Because I think that's one of the biggest fruits of practice is when we are able to see ourselves with a little bit of distance, with I guess enough distance and non-attachment that we can decide to make the shift because we're not fully caught up. Because when I get fully caught up and don't have that observer point of view, I'm done. I can't make a shift.
That's it.
But through practice, we learn to observe our minds. And so that's the moment for me. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
When there's that possibility.
That's right. That's right. And we can always look back and learn from situations, even if we couldn't see it then. But if we can catch it in the moment, then we can work with it. And I think it's so important to share. Just because we see it doesn't mean we can immediately shift it. You don't get to take one in breath and one out breath and everything's better. It's a much more unfolding practice than that. Sometimes it is that quick, and sometimes it's a longer process.
But I think what you named before is it's the possibility.
Yeah.
But once we see it, then there's the possibility, right?
Yeah.
There's the opening there. And maybe not this time, right? It may take a few times, but maybe the third time you lock your keys in your car or lose your key or whatever, you'd be like, oh, I've been down this road before. I've had this emotional reaction before. I've noticed this before. And it worked out, maybe I had to call AAA, maybe I, whatever, but I can be with this. I can be with this, whatever it is. Yeah. So I think that's really awesome. And I would love to just shift a tiny bit. You and I are in this beautiful journey of creating a workspace together. And trying very hard to embody what it means to be a mindful organization. And so I'm really curious about what you think the role of appreciation in particular, but maybe mindfulness in general too, has in creating this organization, and how you and I, how we're holding space for others, and what does that actually mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know we really are working with the practices. So we're in integrity in the sense that we're doing this because we truly value this and want to share it. And we recognize that we don't have the answers or the whole picture, but that we are inviting folks into this journey with us. And I think that we're pretty good at naming some of the ways that mindfulness is countercultural, right? So we're bringing the consciousness to our individual experience, but then how does this play out in the social patterns? So when I think about mindful connections in our trainings, we have built in there anchoring practices and gratitude practices and variety of ways that we're cultivating appreciation. I think we are both very conscious that as we're doing this work, it's the relationships that make this work. And culture would tell us to emphasize other things and emphasize end results, numbers, productivity, whatever. And I think we really try to be in present right relationship where we are noticing and appreciating the value that each person brings. That's something I know I am always working on. Let's see, well, I didn't necessarily grow up with habits of expressing appreciation. My mother was a great role model for thank you cards, and I didn't pick that up, so I have to give her credit for that. But I really do try to be conscientious now. I often will sign my emails like with appreciation, and really, I mean it. I don't do that as a thing, like just to really stop and think as I'm communicating with folks what's the significance that they're bringing to my work and engagement. So I want to name another aspect that I think of appreciation in work and personal, which would simply be pausing and celebrating when we have completed something. And again, I'm pointing to we live in a culture of productivity and there is always more to be done. And so something I'm really trying to model and invite others into is we've accomplished something. Let's feel that in our bodies and pause with that, savor that, value that. If we've worked with something together, like appreciating together, taking a breath together, this thing happened. And then when we decide the time is right, turn to, okay, what's going to happen next? And that's very counter my conditioning and takes a lot of conscious effort to start to make that a habit. So that's something I try to share with others. Yeah, and I guess I'd just say like thinking about the work too, as we're working with other people in a variety of relationships. So just noticing the ways that pausing to appreciate what is going well benefits us all. It calms our nervous systems and opens us to a broader way of seeing things, and it helps us to reorient our perspective. It helps us to reorient that, wait, maybe we don't need to do all the things. Maybe we've got some good things going on here and we just need to do some tweaking or some building. So yeah, I just think in a variety of ways in all of our work and all of our relationships, really tuning into what's going well is very helpful.
I love that. We've talked before about the negativity bias that we can all have, and that intentional honoring of the good seems to be something that could counteract that. The other thing I love that you said is about transitions and endings, which makes me think of the grace model that we teach, right? Just honoring that end,
Ah,
honoring the
yes,
end, and how important that can be, and how it could help us show up to the next thing in a better way.
yes.
That's exciting for me. Like, how
Yeah.
do we do that more, Don?
Hmm.
Because, even in our organization, it's so fast paced. We're always moving. There's never enough time. Like, we try hard to build in practice and mindfulness, and we still get sucked in. So
Yeah.
that'll be a challenge to both of us to think of ways to incorporate that more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. And then I would love, because I'm just asking everyone that I interview, if you have a favorite mindfulness resource that you would like to share with our listeners, we would love to hear that.
Okay. So I would like to mention two things that are on my mind. I already mentioned the value of practice songs for me, and I don't have anything specific to say to that because everybody has their own tunes. There's different practices with songs. I just like to put in a plug for find your song, because I know when I'm caught in thought and I can't make a shift, like music is really good for that. So putting in a plug for that. I want to put in a plug for Awaken Pittsburgh, Awaken Pittsburgh's online community. So if you're not already familiar with Mindful Connections and Community, please connect via our website to our additional forum, which is on the Mighty Networks platform. And so one of the things that happens on that platform is we do a weekly post each week on different themes. And so we are coordinated with these podcasts. So we're kicking around our ideas about appreciation this week. And so if you're enjoying Stephanie and I talking about this, we want to hear your thoughts too. And so the network is a good place to hear what others are thinking and chime in with your own 2 cents. We would love to know how you are working with appreciation. So please join us there. And the third thing I'm just going to mention, these are quick resources, because I know Stephanie and I are preparing for a practice day tomorrow, and we do these occasionally, and would love for you to join us. And as I was thinking about us doing mindful eating tomorrow, I was thinking about the 5 contemplations that are offered through Plum Village. And so that would just be my resource if anyone wants to search the 5 contemplations, which are 5 lines that are offered for us to read before meals. And I don't think I need to read the whole thing here. I want to put it there because food is such a both enjoyable and essential aspect of the human experience. And so many folks may have practices of prayer or silence before a meal. When I first heard the 5 contemplations, it really helped me to ground in that space, that pause before I eat. And the spirit of these contemplations just starts with recognizing that food is the gift of the universe. So just thinking about it that way, that the earth and many people have created this food and it's there for us to receive. So I changed the words a little here, but I like to say, may I eat in mindfulness so as to fully receive it. And just like somehow that language for me really taps into, it's like giving and receiving gifts or giving and receiving compliments. Like we know how much can get in the way of somebody offering us something and then us like, for whatever reason, brushing it off, or I'm not worthy or whatever. So those particular words of the 5 contemplations I just wanted to mention here because they're on my mind, but I think all of it is valuable to use meals and eating as a practice to just pause and say, am I allowing myself to receive the gifts of the universe? And am I allowing this to nourish me so that I can offer that give and take being in relationship?
I love that. I love that. Yeah, that mindful eating is a very profound, can be a very profound practice. And we usually just blow through our meals multitasking, and on our phones, on our
Yeah.
computers, all the things. So having that as a practice is wonderful. And we have been putting all of the resources in the notes below the podcast. So you should be able to scroll down and find those there. And then my last question before we wrap up, Don, is there anything I didn't ask about that you would like to share on this topic or practice in general? Anything else in your mind and heart?
I think that you touched on something early on, or maybe we both did. I don't remember how it came up, but I want to circle back to this idea of practice as a way of creating culture, right? And I know you and I talk about this. We are not promoting mindfulness so individuals can go in their bubbles and feel good for a short time and then go into the world and just add to the messiness. Like, we really want to see a world where people care for one another and people can flourish and all the things. And so I really just want to invite folks to consider appreciation as part of creating culture. That we're shifting that culture from, I don't have enough, I've got to look out for myself, to like, there's so much here to value. We have what we need. We have what we need in each other, and really seeing that. And then also just creating a culture in which we know what we value and we amplify that. That by naming, I really like this quality in you, I want to see more of that. Or I really like when we get together, I have this experience. Or I really value whatever it is. Naming it, taking a stand for it, going for it. I think that's one way that we can live into making this a world that is better for all of us.
I don't think I want to say anything else after that. That was really beautiful. I want to end on that. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. And yeah, like that's what I want to create in this world as well. A place where we voice our appreciation and care and enact it in the world to shift, the negativity and the difficulties that somehow we are all creating for ourselves, right? Because we're not always living in that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for all you do and that Awaken does to move us into that world.
Say Something Studio.